Awesome. All right. Hey, new conversation that we're beginning tonight. I love this conversation. Excited about it. It is called conflicted. Conflicted. And here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about being in conflict with people. Okay? So how many of you would raise your hand, are gamers? How many gamers are in the room right now? Okay, a lot. A lot. We might need to get some sort of gaming competition between youth groups going on or something. So we got some gamers, okay? How many of you play like some classic games? You like any classics? All right, name a classic real quick. Smash Brothers, all right? Mario 64, that was great. Yes, sir. Doom? VO2, okay. Dogma, okay, this side, let's go. Text you, yeah. Anyone over here? Gamers? You're good. You already said yours? Yeah. Cool, all right, you can put your hands down. Cool. How many of you, go ahead with yours. Dungeons and Dragons, I love it. So real quick, how many of you have a younger sibling? Awesome. Keep your hand up if you and your younger siblings play video games together. All right, now, if your hand's still up and you have a younger sibling that you play video games with, how often are you player one? All the time. Okay, you can put your hand down. I just wanted to see. So, for me, I am the younger brother. It's me and my brother were the only children. Me and my brother were the only ones that my parents had. And we grew up playing, now get this, Nintendo. No 64. Yeah, I'm talking like Nintendo. I'm talking about, like, you had to blow the game out to clean it out because it wasn't working right. I'm talking about that Nintendo. It came on a contraption that looked like a square that was about this big. And my favorite to play was Super Mario Brothers 3. Yeah, throwing it back, okay. But here's the thing, when you're the younger sibling, and you might know this if you have an older one yourself, but if you're the younger sibling, you don't get to be Mario. You get to be Luigi. Yeah. Or what you may call in any other video game, player two. So if you've grown up in video games, you know that every hero has a villain. Mario has... No, Bowser, there you go. Mario has Bowser. Donkey Kong has... No, there. Okay, we'll go with that one. And last one. Let's see. Sonic has. All right, we'll go with that one. I love it. But here's the point. Every hero has a villain. So when it comes to your life, how many times have you been in some sort of conflict with a villain? So I'm going to do a little story for you guys from when I was in high school. So flashback to way back when, early 2000s. We don't need to get into all the years, okay? But during that time, I was playing basketball in gym. So I had signed up for weightlifting, but it was Friday, and on Fridays in gym class, you roll out the basketballs and you play basketball. So me and my buddy Frank were on the same team, and it was, I think, like 4 versus 4 going sideways on the side goals. And we're playing basketball, and we're kind of winning. And my buddy Frank, I pass him the ball. Frank drives in. He makes a layup. And it looked like there was a little bit of contact on the play. But he made the basket. So I said, and no basketball players. Okay, good deal. All right, there's one. And one. I said, and one. You might want to learn that if you've played too many video games, that and one's the thing, like if you just like leveled up, okay? That's kind of what you would compare it to. If you play video games, you might know that. So he got fouled and made the basket, so I said, good job, Frank, and won. Well, the guy who allegedly fouled him did not like that I thought he fouled Frank. So he starts saying all sorts of stuff going back down the court when it's their ball. And I'm hearing what he's saying, and he's saying all sorts of stuff that you would not want to say in a building like this, right, or that had church in the name. And as we're going back down the court, I'm like, man, he's really upset with someone. And then I turned around to like start playing defense, and I realized he is upset with me. And I was going to be a youth pastor in the future. But he was saying all sorts of stuff about how he didn't agree with what I was saying. And needless to say, he said, where are you going was one of his questions. And I knew the answer to that question. I was like, well, I'm getting back on defense. We just scored. Now you guys try to score. It's basketball. You know, that's kind of, I was letting him know the rules of the game in case he'd forgotten or something, you know. He didn't like my answer. So they scored, not this guy, but another guy scored, and I'm taking the ball out, and as I get the ball to throw it into Frank, again, bad things happen when you throw the ball to Frank, guys. But I throw the ball to Frank, and this guy who's still upset with me, and he was like close to 6 foot. I was not close to 6 foot. Still am not close to 6 foot. But I'm standing with my back literally against the wall in the Southview Auxiliary Gym, and he puts his hand around my throat. Now, time out. This is not like a greeting kind of gesture. I don't encourage you to ever do this with someone because that's not a good way to say, hey, how are you doing? How's your mama and them? That's not how you want to do this. So I was brought up, and maybe you have similar rules. Maybe your parents have told you you never start a fight, right? But you say, okay, that's, wow, violent. And I'm just kidding. But, hey, you never start a fight. Or maybe this is the one, and this is what was told to me. You only fight when your back is against the wall and you have no option out, right? When you have to, so to speak. It's kind of how it was taught to me. You don't start a fight, but if you need to defend yourself, you defend yourself. And now in this predicament, I am literally in a situation where my back is against a brick wall. I can't turn and go that way, all right? And his hand is on my throat. That's a threat, right? That's not something nice to do to anyone. So I had all rationale and reason to hit this guy. But here's, to put it in context, this was my senior year, and I had just applied to UNC Chapel Hill. I really wanted to go to UNC Chapel Hill. How many Duke fans are in the room right now? Just real quick, raise your hand, Duke fans. Ha-ha! All right, you can put your hand down. All right, so I love Chapel Hill. I wanted to go to Chapel Hill. And here's what I know. You've heard this in school, that now is not the time to have anything negative on my record, because it was already hard to get into a school like Chapel Hill. Now if I add this into it, then it's going to be bad for me. Even if I can rationalize, Mr. Principal, he hit me first. Even though I can justify, but Mr. Principal, my back was against the wall, he had his hand on my throat. I can rationalize all these things that I want to, but here's the thing. If I make the decision, then it's my decision. And I have to be accountable for my decision. So I knew that I did not want to throw a punch, but I could still defend myself. So as this guy, I had been weightlifting, mind you, so I took his hand off my throat, and then he put his hands up and then started to go swinging. So I went up under him, grabbed him, and had him right there. Both gym teachers come, get him, he gets suspended, I go to Chapel Hill. So here's, thank you. You're far too kind, But here's the thing you have to remember, that what you do is on you. I cannot control what anyone does or says about me or does to me. But I can control everything that I do and say about other people. But sometimes conflict still finds you when you had no intention of having a conflict. So what do you do when there is a conflict? Now, in terms of a fight, if you're in that predicament like I just described, what I've told students in the past was stop the threat. Stopping a threat often means you don't have to throw a punch. For this guy, all I did was make it where he could no longer punch me, and I could say, hey, come get this guy, and he was escorted out. So just stop the threat when it comes to violence like that. But I don't think many of us are going out and getting in fights every day at school and that kind of thing. So maybe you've never been into a fight, and we're thankful for that. But you've been in a conflict before, whether it's been with a sibling, maybe a parent on the way to church tonight, maybe with a former friend. You've been in some sort of conflict in this kind of argument that's caused tension in your relationship or in your friendship. And that tends to lead to regret. And then it spirals into more of than just a conflict, but a tense moment where you probably want to fight. So that being the case, how do we respond to conflict? So tonight we want to give you a plan when it's you versus them, or player one versus player two. So with that, we first got to ask, well, Josh, in the grand scheme of things, where does conflict usually begin? And that's a great question. So if you have a tense relationship right now or a tense friendship or friends that you don't speak to anymore, it's like, where did this all start? Where did this conflict actually begin? And it probably began where you both disagreed. You disagreed on something, either what someone said, how they said it, or what they didn't say. You disagreed in how they responded, or they disagreed with how you responded. And here's a quick answer to that, to like just make sure you leave knowing this. It is okay to disagree with people. You can disagree and still be friends, right? So please hang on to that. You should not have friends who only agree with you. If you do, then you're not going to really have an open mind or learn much of anything. You just have a bunch of yous floating around you, right? So it's okay to disagree. So first off, there's that. But usually conflict will begin, you disagree about something, and then it gets personal, all right? It gets a little testy, it gets a little personal, because you start to feel offended. So now I disagree with you. I'm offended that you don't agree with me or how you verbalize your disagreement, and now I'm offended. And then it turns into one of the final stages, which is you start to give labels. And you label this situation this way. You label yourself as the victim. I can't believe they're doing this to me. I can't believe they said this to me. Me. Like, why are they against me? And you're the victim, and you label them as the villain. Wow, them. I hate them. I do not like them. And I want to make sure that I win this. So now you label the outcome as I have to win. So if it's a moment where you felt embarrassed, you're the victim, they're the villain, and now you have to embarrass them more. And now we have this whole conflict going on. And I want to make sure that other people see that they get more embarrassed than I am embarrassed. So now we have a real conflict. Can anyone in the room relate to this? You don't have to look at anyone if they're in the room, right? Yeah, cool. So both hands are going up. It's like maybe right now you're in the middle of a conflict that's going on. I don't know your situation, but it probably began with there's a disagreement, you got offended, and you applied labels. And here's the bad part about labels. When you start applying labels, you then start rationalizing all the negative outcomes and how that's okay to do. Because now you're labeling them as a villain. They're no longer a person to you. They're no longer someone that has feelings and emotions and that you care about. They're just a villain, and you know how we handle villains. You throw bricks at them. You throw turtle shells at them. You collect more rings than it. Like you're going back to your video games now. Like all of a sudden, they're the villain. I've got to handle the villain. And in video games, we handle villains. But I just needed to remind you guys that when you're in conflict with someone, that is someone just like you with the same emotions, the same feelings, and the same troubles. In fact, it would be wise if you found out maybe why they disagreed with you and had a conversation. But more on that in a minute. So now that we have this room and we can understand that, hey, there's this conflict going on, I want to make sure that you know this. So if you would like write this down or commit this to memory. And it's one sentence that goes like this to help you understand kind of how not to handle conflict. But check this out. When we start labeling, here's what we tend to do. This tends to happen when we fill in missing information with victimizing assumptions. You start to get offended and you start to have a conflict with someone. After you've been offended and you disagreed, here's what happens. You tend to fill in missing information, things that you don't know why they said it or why they did it. That missing information that you don't know, you weren't told that, you weren't there when it happened. You fill in the missing information with victimizing assumptions. Oh, it's because they don't like me. Oh, it's because they think I did this. Oh, they said that because of this reason. And you start making up assumptions, and kind of 8 times out of 10, those are assumptions that you have about yourself that actually no one else has about you. But you start filling in the gaps with things, and now all of a sudden my assumptions have helped me really build up this villain in player 2 that now I got to battle. So you're ready to now go to battle in this conflict. So if that's you, and you have someone that you've been conflicting with for quite some time, or that you want to conflict with, and you hope that they see you tomorrow and say one thing so you can handle that, I need you to pay attention to this next part. But here's the thing. You only have to pay attention to this next part if you are a Christ follower. If you're someone that believes Jesus is the Son of God who died for your sins, then you need to listen to this next part. If you're in the room and you don't believe that, then you actually get to have some fun over the next couple of minutes, because you can think of all your friends who are Christians, and they're probably in the room, and you can pick at them and hold them accountable and laugh at them for what I'm about to tell you. Because after I get done, you can say, you're supposed to be doing that, and you ain't been doing that. You can hold them accountable. You can pick on them and laugh at them. You can, because you're not a Christ follower. But if you're a Christ follower, then this, what I'm about to share with you, should cause you to get kind of wide-eyed, a little bit nervous, a little bit scared, and probably have some conversations soon. So with that, if you have a Bible, you can turn to Matthew chapter 5. If you don't have a Bible, we'll put it on the screen for you. But Jesus, in this situation, is giving one of his first recorded sermons. And this was a very popular sermon. It goes on for like 2.5 chapters. So it's called the Sermon on the Mount. And near the beginning, he starts talking about this concept of murder. So real quick, raise your hand. Do you know what murder is? Yeah, okay, good deal. For those who didn't raise your hand, pay attention. We're up here. Hey, it's nice to see you. But murder is when you end someone's life, right? That's murder. You bring out the cost to end a life. So Jesus gets to the topic of murder, and in his teaching way, he says, hey, you're all familiar with this law. Well, I want to actually raise the standard. So Jesus starts giving some brand new information. They're like, whoa, you leveled up on us for my video game players, right? We're about to level up. So check this out. Jesus says in verse 21, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder. That's a good law. I think that you should probably have that law. If that's not in your rule books for dating or friends, you should implement that. Don't kill people. So he says, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. So that's what the Old Testament law said. Don't kill people. If you kill people, you were going to be subject to judgment. But Jesus keeps speaking. And he goes on to say in the next part, in this next sentence, he says in verse 22, but I tell you, here's a new one, guys. We're going to raise the stakes. I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister. Now, brother or sister doesn't mean your siblings necessarily. It means other Christ followers or God followers, other Jewish people, people who have the same faith as you. If you're angry with other followers of this faith, that counts. If you're angry, everybody say angry. If you're angry with someone, that counts. You will be subject to judgment. And get this, just real quick, if you would raise your hand on this. How many of you have ever been angry towards someone? Ooh, all right, you can go ahead and put your hand down. So that means that in God's eyes, we've essentially stepped towards murder. Because you never kill someone that you like. It always starts somewhere. Let's transition it down, because I know when I say murder and kill, you're like, that's kind of just hard to think about. Let's go this way. You've never fought someone that you like. You've never done that. You had a disagreement. You felt offended and probably embarrassed, and then it led to labels, and now they're the villain, and now we need to fight. But it all started when you became angry. Jesus is speaking because he knows, hey, anger is where it all starts. So I know that I can help with the whole killing people thing and conflict thing if we address the anger that it spurs from. So in this, check this out, it gets worse for us all. For the Christians in the room, if you're not a Christian in the room, then you can just point and laugh at us hey, you all you just admitted that you've been angry. And he said, don't do that. You so crazy, right? So it gets worse for us. Check this out. He goes on to say, again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, raka, which is a Hebrew, not a cuss word or anything, but just an angry word, is answerable to the court. But check this out. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Don't raise your hand for this question. How many of you have ever said anything that you would say is a little bit more serious than "you fool"? Don't raise your hand. So based off of what Jesus taught in one of his very first sermons, we are all subject to judgment and going to hell. Josh, it was just a word. I was just calling them something. Yeah, you were calling them something that offended them, that would cause them to have labels against you and labels on them and spur into hatred and murder and separation. And oh, by the way, the person you called a fool was the person that God created and his son died for. So tell me again real quick, why are you upset with them? Because it's very hard for you to sing praises. Oh, God, you moved the mountains, and I know you'll do it again. It's hard for me to sing praises to God when I'm picking on his children. Let me tell you something real quick. If my son were to run in here right now, and I'm missing his t-ball practice for you guys, just by the way, so you know your value, like how much I love you guys. But if he came running, thank you. If he came running in here and one of you had something negative to say about my son and wanted to pick on my son, you don't need to come up to me after this message and say, Josh, that was great. I just really appreciate you and all that. You don't need to talk and give me praises and say thank you and gratitude for me when you've talked about my children. That's how it is with us. So when you're in conflict with someone, you're subject to judgment and you're in conflict with someone that God cares about. And you too are someone that God cares about. So that's why we want to take this seriously. So thankfully, Jesus was a great teacher, and he says, okay, now that we've presented the problem, here's the solution. All right, so he didn't stop with that. He's like, hey, don't do it. He followed it up and said, here's what you need to do. So check this out. Here's how seriously Jesus took conflict. He goes on to kind of keep teaching and says in verse 23, therefore, all right, so therefore, here's your solution. If you are offering your gift at the altar, which is like if we'll start doing offerings here at Squad, but maybe you've been to a church, we do it on Sundays where you give an offering. So if you're in the middle of bringing your offering to God, your gift to God to say, thank you, God, for all that you provided me with, maybe the tithe or just another generous gift back to God so that his mission can be done. If you're in the middle of giving this gift to God and you happen to remember there's a conflict. He says, if you're offering your gift and at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, here's how serious to take it. Leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. He says, as you're in the middle of a church service and you're about to give this offering, give this gift back to God and say, thank you, God, for all that you've done, and you realize, hey, I've got someone that's angry with me and I'm angry with them, then you need to leave right then and go address the mess. You need to pay attention to the tension you have with someone and reconcile. Do you know what reconcile means? It means restore the friendship. Now, here's the case where that does not quite apply. When it's been abuse and violence involved. If it's not safe for that kind of reconciliation to take place, that's not it. You shouldn't put yourself in a safe situation or unsafe situation. That's not what Jesus is talking about. He's saying when you've had a rapport with someone and y'all are now in conflict with each other, then you need to address that because it's hard for you to worship a loving God when you have hatred towards someone that he cares about. So he says, even if you're in the middle of worship and you're trying to sing praises, you won't be able to do it effectively because there's a conflict that you have that you need to address. So you need to go address it. And in the very next verse, he says, here's how you address it. Quickly. Now, for me, when I read that, I was like, I wonder why you got to do it so quickly. Like, what's the big idea, Jesus? Like, couldn't I just wait? Can I let it marinate? Let me give the gift. Let me do my worship. Because some of these worship songs be like just hitting right sometimes. Like, get me in a good mood to go have this conversation. He says, no. Go do it quickly. Why would I have to do it so quickly? Oh, because it started as a disagreement, and now we're offended at each other, and if I don't do it quickly, they'll start applying labels, and I'll start applying labels, and then I'll start putting in assumptions with the missing information, and we're going to go further and further apart to where it can't be restored. So I need to go quickly. Don't let it marinate. Don't let it wait. I need to address it quickly. So right now, I just want you to think of someone that maybe right now you have a conflict with. Maybe it just started fresh at school today or over text message, like after school or Instagram, whatever the case may be. You're in conflict with someone. I want to tell you how to restore that relationship. And it's not that you have to be best friends after this is all said and done. But here's what you do. And it's the only step that you need to take, okay? So if you're taking notes, here's what you need to write down. To restore a relationship, you need to have a caring conversation. If there's conflict in one of your relationships, all you need to do is have a caring conversation. A caring conversation is just a conversation where you let the other person know how much you care about them. It only works if you show how much you care more about them than how much you care about the conflict. It only works if you let them know how much you care about them and not winning the argument or making your point. You can make a point anytime you want to, or you can make a difference, but you can't do both at the same time. So you need to have a caring conversation where you let this other person know how much you care about them, not what they did, not what they said. You want to go to the source, the anger part of it, before it manifests itself and grows into hatred and division. So a couple of examples. Let's say that you have a friend that you're in conflict with. Here's a little sample of a script that you can use if you want to steal this and use it. You could say, hey, Zach, I just want to let you know, man, how much I appreciate you. Right? I'm letting him know, like, I value our friendship. I want to let you know how much I appreciate you and our friendship. I feel concerned because I heard you don't like a decision that I made or something I said. Is that true? Like, first off, if you didn't hear from them, you first need to fact check and say, is this even true? Because I don't know if you know this or not, like, people lie. Did you know that? Okay, you knew that. All right. So people do happen to, like, get things mixed up, and they make some stuff up sometimes and fill in the gaps themselves with assumptions. So is it true? And if he agrees, like, hey, yep, I do disagree with you on what you decided, then here's how I would follow up. I respect you so much, I want to make sure that I provide you with clarity on why I decided that. Here's why I made that decision. And as you lay out the details of why you said that or did that, then it's all of a sudden like, oh, wow, I didn't think of it that way. How many times have you and your friends argued for a little bit, and then at the end of it, you're like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Now you feel kind of stupid, right? I'm like, oh, I should have thought of it that way. Now that's all I can think about. Of course you would do that decision, right? So sometimes I just had missing information, but a caring conversation helps me gain the missing information. Or you could stick to your fighting way and say, no, I just want to make up assumptions of what they think of me and what I think of them and just fight it out, right? And we'll get to another fight example here in a second. But another one may be this, and I'm not trying to get too personal, but maybe you're in a conflict with your parents sometimes. Maybe at some point during the week or the past few weeks, mom and dad have been a little distant, a little tense, like you would do the smallest thing wrong and it became the biggest thing ever. You forgot to take the trash out, and for some reason that was like the biggest mistake, and they were so frustrated, and you never, and you always, and why can't you just, and all of a sudden that tension starts building in you, and then you respond because guess what? You disagree with how they responded, and you're offended with how they responded, so now you're applying labels, and mom and dad are the villains, and you're the victim, and you know how we handle villains. And so you get loud, and now you try to embarrass them, and you try to state your case. Or you could leave your offering at the altar. You could approach mom and dad and have a conversation, a caring conversation that maybe goes a little something like this. Mom, I love you so much. I do. I know I haven't shown it a lot lately. I know I haven't been doing some things. And I know I made a mistake with the trash. But I want to let you know that I love you so much. And I have seen you working really hard. That's why you hadn't been here a lot. And that's probably why I didn't take the trash out. You weren't here. And I know that you shouldn't have to remind me. But you've been busy. You've been trying to just work and do overtime. So I just want to let you know, I see you working so hard. And I want to say thank you. I see what you're doing. I just want to let you know how much I care. And I'm thankful for what you're doing. But I've also noticed things between us have been a little tense for about a couple weeks now. Is there something I've done to cause this tension, or is there something going on outside of our relationship that I can help ease the tension? But I just wanted to say I noticed the tension, and I wanted to see if we could start paying attention to that tension, because I want to make sure that we keep our relationship safe of conflict. Now, you can respond any way you want to. I have no control over what you do. But when it comes to me, when I respond to conflict, I want to make sure that person knows how much I care for them. And I always want to show them respect even when they don't show me respect. And here's why. You know how to fill in this blank. So help me with it. To get respect, you have to give respect. You've heard it too. And so what tends to happen is if I'm in conflict with someone, and we're at school and they've embarrassed me or something, and we're in conflict with each other. Why? Could you run up here real quick? Can you? I know you got Crocs on, but they're in sports mode, so you're good? Yeah, awesome. Cool. So and we would never be in conflict because his hair looks too good. Maybe that's why we would be in conflict. I can't stand too close to you because my hair doesn't like your hair. But if we're in conflict with each other and he disrespects me, it's easy for me to say, oh, I'm not going to respect him because he didn't respect me. And to get respect, you have to give respect. But when you use that logic to disrespect someone else, you've missed the point. You're upset because you didn't get respected. So that I can't control the respect they give me. But I can say, I want respect. Even if someone disrespects me, I still want the respect. I just feel like, how am I going to get this back? And the best way is not to disrespect him more than he disrespected me. The best way is to start showing respect to him, and then I can navigate the conversation. So as he's loud, like don't yell loud, but like gesture like you're speaking at me real loud. Like, yeah, like, oh, come on. I love this. Like, when everyone goes home tonight, this is what they're going to remember. I love it. So if he was like yelling at me, pretend like he's my dad or something like that, he's yelling and doing all this stuff, and I said, Mr. Watt, I'm so sorry. I did not mean that how it came out, right? If I'm starting to throw out titles like Mr. and Mrs., or if he's dad, like, hey, dad, if I'm quick to apologize, do you know what I just did to his anger? I just helped him put his gift down at the altar, and let's work on this caring conversation. So I'm going to be the first one to give you respect, even when I feel like you've disrespected me. Why? Because I want the respect. That's the quote. To get respect, I have to give respect. And here's what I love about having a caring conversation. And think about this, and then I'm going to come back to you to see if you agree. If I have a caring conversation with Wyatt after he was upset with me, you know what's going to happen when I leave the room and he starts talking to his friends on the front row about like what happened? He'll say like, I don't agree with what Josh did or said, but I'm not really upset anymore. I'm not mad at him. I don't agree with whatever, but I'm not mad. And all of a sudden, he's at ease and he's at peace. And when you have a caring conversation, here's what tends to happen. Your character is now built up in that other person. And for me, what character is, your character, what that means is character is what speaks for you when you're not in the room. So now, based off of how we handled this conversation, if another friend has an issue with me, and Wyatt is now in that conversation, he'll be quick to say, I don't think Josh would mean it that way. You might just want to go talk to him. Because look, I've had a conversation, and that doesn't seem the way Josh is. All of a sudden, Josh's character is speaking for him through Wyatt, and I'm not even in the room. So Wyatt, would you agree that character seems to speak for you when you're not in the room? Can everyone give it up for my dad, Wyatt, with the good hair? Appreciate you, man. So, squad, as we close out, again, we don't bring you here to tell you better do this or get out. That's not it. We just want to present some options to you so that when conflict comes, you don't start putting in missing information with your own assumptions and start giving out labels and say, they're the villain, I'm the victim, and if you're not on my team, you're against me and you're a villain too, and we need to fight it out. You shouldn't let conflicts manifest themselves and keep growing and growing and consuming and consuming and dividing and dividing. I think you can look at the past couple of years that we've lived and realize that there's enough division, enough things that we can disagree about, but we don't have to be and stay offended. We can have caring conversations and really help one another. So maybe you're in this boat. Let's go to the extreme and say, yep, I don't mind fighting at school. If there's someone talking about me, you better keep my name out your mouth, all that kind of stuff, and you will be quick to get into a fight. I've had this conversation a couple of times, and I've shared it a few times, but I'll share it one last time with you guys tonight. When I was teaching at Grace Creek High School, a senior came up to me and the SRO officer while we were sitting there speaking and another faculty member and said, hey, if we get into a fight right now at school, do we not get to go to graduation? And I think at the time that's the rule. Like there are certain things that happen. You can't just like go up to, we're about to be out of school anyways. Like there's stuff that still happens. They can hold your diploma, all sorts of stuff. So that school you thought you were getting into, all of a sudden you don't have the transcripts and all that kind of like, hey, what's going on? We're missing this. You ain't going there, right? So we said, yes, that is the rule. You don't want to get into a fight. She said, okay. So as she went to go, I said, hey, wait just a second. Why do you want to fight this person? And she said, because I don't like her. So just real quick. I followed up with some questions. I wanted to know. I was just inquisitive. So I said, okay, so let's play this all the way out. You don't like her. If you fight her and you win, are you going to like her? Well, no. Okay, all right. No, let's do the alternative. If you fight her and lose, are you going to like her? Well, no. I'm failing to see how fighting is the solution to the problem of her not liking you, if that's the problem. But what you could do is have a caring conversation and understand, like, hey, where did our disagreement come from? We don't have to be best friends, but I just wanted to check in and see if there's something that was misconstrued or give you clarity on why I did or said what I did. But I think there's some misconception. But you should never fight, only when you're trying to stop a threat to someone else. But when there's conflict, have a caring conversation. And I bet you will change the outcome from anger to no regrets and a little bit more peace in your life. Let me pray for us. Hey, I'm Josh Carter. Thank you so much for stopping by to view this message. If your next step is to receive Christ as your Lord and Savior, we are so excited for you and we want to help you take that next step. So jump in the description and click those links to find out what following Jesus is all about, what that means, and of course, what's next. And if your next step is baptism, we would love to schedule that for you. So just go to CrossPointe.church, select next steps, and get baptized and fill out that application, and we will schedule that day with you. So super excited for you. But again, thank you so much for viewing this week's message. Have a great day, and God bless.